All right, great. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. I hope you're doing great, and I'm very excited for this webinar, inshallah. Special thanks to the Atā initiative for this wonderful opportunity, which is under the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology of Saudi Arabia. And of course, to my lovely ladies, women in cybersecurity Middle East group for giving me this opportunity. Okay, so let's dive straight into it. Starting with myself, this is Iman Ali, as you can see on the screen. And I am a member of the Women in Cybersecurity Middle East group of the wonderful ladies. And I've been with them since around 2 years. No doubt they're doing a wonderful job to spread the cybersecurity information, especially to leverage and empower women. Professionally, I am a research analyst at Dinar Standard, and my focus areas are the halal economy, the digital innovation like blockchain, and I've been doing some analysis and research around those areas. As you may have rightly read on the poster as well, I have had the opportunity of writing certain academic papers around blockchain, specifically on how blockchain could revolutionize the halal food supply chain. And that has been published as a Scopus paper. And I also had the opportunity to have this published as a chapter on one of the books, which is this one, Artificial Intelligence book. And yeah, alhamdulillah, I've been very passionate about the blockchain technology, although I do not come from the technical background. However, my purpose today is to share with you the equal excitement and energy on blockchain. And yeah, so let's dive straight into it. Okay, so this is our topic of the day, demystifying the blockchain technology. If I can try in Arabic, تبسيط تقنية البلوكتشين. I actually wonder, I really wish I could speak Arabic because Arabic is such a rich language. But inshallah, soon. Okay, we are diverting. So the agenda for today. There'll be mainly 4 main things that we will discuss and discover together. First is about the blockchain. So what it is all about, what are the different types of technologies, blockchain technologies, and so on and so forth. Then we will see the role of blockchain technology in the COVID-19 crisis. Third, we will look at blockchain and cybersecurity. What is the link between those two, and what does blockchain mean for cybersecurity? And lastly, we will touch upon some of the challenges that come along the blockchain technology, like any other technology, right? So let's begin. About the blockchain technology. Okay, so a typical definition would tell you that blockchain is a distributed ledger technology that provides a single immutable ledger of transactions across the network, which are time-stamped and stored in blocks. Well, it's a good definition, no doubt, but what does it really mean, So we're going to simplify this further. But before that, let me take you through some of the statistics regarding blockchain. It's not been very easy to get some global statistics on blockchain. However, this is a fascinating number. The worldwide spending on blockchain solutions for 2020 is estimated to be $4.3 billion, which, if you realize, is quite huge for a technology like any other technology. Some of the popular use cases, or in other words, some of the popular areas where blockchain is deployed include the digital currency, like Bitcoins, data sharing, payments, tracking and tracing, like supply chain, so on and so forth. So let's dive deep into it to understand more about it. Okay, so the definition is good for those who really are familiar with technical words, but let's further simplify this for us, okay? Because one of the challenges that many of us face is really understanding what exactly blockchain is. Because we know there is a huge hype for it, but what is it exactly? Okay, so this is how I plan to divide the definition of blockchain. Firstly, what it is, and second part is how it functions. So under what it is, let's look at three main dimensions, okay? Number one, know that blockchain is a decentralized and distributed ledger. So imagine there are so many computers like the ones on the screen you can see, which are called nodes in blockchain. And they basically are all connected in a network. And the way they're connected is through ledgers. Okay, ledger is nothing but a database, right? A ledger in common terms is a book or a database. So that is how they're connected. Now, one thing to note is that this ledger is an exact copy that is spread around all the nodes. So each one has an exact same copy of the ledger. That's why it's called a distributed ledger. And it's called decentralized because there is no one really controlling this ledger. Well, then what does that mean? Let's get to the next point to understand this further. Right, secondly, blockchain runs on the consensus mechanism. And this will answer our first question, like what does it mean for a ledger to be to be decentralized? This is what it means. The blockchain runs on consensus mechanism, which means should you want to add something to the ledger, you need to take permission from all of the nodes on the system. And that's why it's decentralized, because there's no one person or one server who is controlling what you add or what you delete on the database. Consensus mechanism is run on public key infrastructure, which is public and private keys. Only those authorized to do so can actually make changes on the ledger, and we'll get to the depth of it in a while. Lastly, the 50% rule, which means that it's supposed to be 51. Pardon my mistake here. 51% rule, which means that at least 51% of all the participants should say a yes, and that's when a data is added to the ledger. So first point was that it's a distributed ledger and it's decentralized. It's decentralized because of the consensus mechanism, which works on the public key infrastructure. And the last part is that these ledgers are immutable. You cannot change it. Well, what does that mean exactly? When a transaction, after the consensus mechanism, when a transaction is added, this is how it works in technical terms, you could say. So imagine within a ledger, there is a block, like you can see on the screen, right? This block contains your information, your data, and the way it is joined or chained within the system is using the cryptographic hash algorithms. Now, what's interesting to note here is that when a block is added, the hash that it contains is actually a reference to the previous hash. So, to the previous block. So you cannot add any other blocks within it, or you can't change any previous blocks because that hash reference will change. And when there's any change that happens, all the nodes in the system will know that there's a change that has happened. And of course, if it's not a legit change, they will not accept it. Isn't that cool? This is how each block is chained together. And that's why the blockchain is here. It's using the hash algorithms. So let's do a quick revision. We spoke about blockchain, number one, being decentralized and has first thing you have to know is that it's a distributed ledger technology. And it's decentralized because of the second reason: it runs on consensus mechanism, which requires public key infrastructure. And thirdly, it's immutable because of the hash algorithms. So this is how I have divided. It first talks about the system itself, how it is arranged. Then it talks about each node and each participant and the role they play. And lastly, about the data itself. Cool. So with those functions of blockchain, these are the features of the blockchain technology. Immutable ledger, as we all know, because of the hash algorithm. It runs on consensus mechanism. Validator nodes are basically those who have the authority to make changes on the blockchain. By changes, I mean to add something on the blockchain. Blocks, we know. Cryptographic hash, we know. And these are the two different terms, right, introduced to you. Time-stamped and audit trail. So that ledger or database where transactions are recorded, they are time-stamped, meaning you will know exactly which date and what time has the transaction been added. And this is how it provides an audit trail, which means that you can audit this entire ledger at any time because you have full picture of the data added. Okay, so that was what blockchain means. Now let's look at the types of blockchain. Primarily, there are three types of blockchains: public, private, and consortium. The public blockchain, and the difference between these three different types of blockchain is nothing but the permission that is required, the permission to add something to the blockchain. Otherwise, their key features, key functioning are all the same. So on a public blockchain, an example is Bitcoins or cryptocurrency. It's permissionless, which means that you do not need a permission to be added to the system, and you don't need permission to become a validator node or to become an authorizer. While on the other hand, private blockchain, like the name suggests, you need a permission to be added among the authority. You need permission to also be just added to the system. And lastly, consortium blockchains, or they're also known as hybrid blockchain, are a combination of these two, which means that you do have some sort of a flexibility in terms of being added to the blockchain. However, among those people, some are authorized to make changes and others can only view the blockchain. And this is most commonly used, or at least commonly planned for, within the blockchain ecosystem. For example, supply chain management or e-government, and so on and so forth. I want to stop here for a second, and I know this is going to get boring because sadly, I am sitting here alone and there is no interaction happening. So that's quite sad because it would have been good if we could interact and, but anyhow, you do have the chat box. So feel free to give your questions or any comments, or if you want to add something. And I'm trying to make this as light, interactive, and fun as possible. Okay. So far, we have looked at what blockchain is, what are its features, what are its types. Now let's look at some case studies. So there is so much hype because of the blockchain, but people really don't know where it is used. And it's for a fact that blockchain is still in its infancy stage. And there is nothing like a successful case. There are a few, but not many, because many of them are still under the pilot stage, right? They're still testing this blockchain technology, and I'm trying to make a shift. But let's still look at those certain select case studies that are planning to or are doing some pilot studies or are already full-fledged on blockchain. So the first column shows you what industries the technology is used in. The second column will show you the company that is deploying or trying to deploy the blockchain technology. And the last column will show you the application for that. Financial services. So EY's Nightfall is a project where it's trying to use blockchain technology in order to enable its stakeholders to transact securely, to transact their financial transactions securely. And what they're using is a very fascinating technology or concept, which is called the zero knowledge proof. And I'm actually still exploring this concept because it's very cool. And then I don't want to spend so much time on this, but just to roughly tell you what this technology proposes, it allows users to prove certain items, to prove that certain thing is true without actually revealing the actual information. Oof, isn't that mind-boggling? Like, you will know if an information is true or not without actually seeing that information. So this is very fascinating, and I wish I could spend more time in giving you that Alice and Bob example, but do check it out. You will enjoy that. So by using this kind of a concept, they aim to cut the cost per transaction to around $0.05 US. Because one of the things within financial system is, there's a lot of cost that goes with simple administrative functions, services, right? So that's where cost goes. Blockchain can actually help mitigate those costs and remove those costs. Okay, moving forward. Cryptocurrency, Bitcoins, everyone knows it. It's a great hype. It has been a great hype. And this statistic that I'm going to show you now is just mind-boggling. Bitcoins initially started in 2009, and the value of one Bitcoin back then was dollar, and be with me here, $0.0008 per Bitcoin, which is like nothing. But now, today, if you just Google it, and actually I want you to do that. I want you to do this exercise. So I want you to Google the value of Bitcoin in dollars. While I have the answer on the screen, but I still want you to check it to see if it did fluctuate or not. So I'm not sure what it shows on your screens, but this is what it shows for me. It says one Bitcoin is 11,985. Is that it? And I just checked this afternoon, like a few hours ago, and it was 11,893. It's fluctuating, it's increasing, and it's just crazy. So what is making this Bitcoin a great hype is another discussion. And it's interesting how cryptocurrencies work, really. So, yeah. Third one, and this is an interesting one again, is the regulations and e-government. So pardon me if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but this is the Uber digital currency. And this is a joint initiative between Saudi Arabia and UAE, the central banks, where they plan to launch this digital currency. And why they want to do this is to facilitate blockchain-based financial settlements between the two countries. And their goal is to reduce remittance costs. So this is great, and it's still in the pilot stages, but this announcement is great. Next, we have the supply chain. Yes, a common one, or a part of what we would call a consortium blockchain. This is a company, Ledger, which is trying to use blockchain to trace diamonds, which is cool. Okay, last few, the halal industry. Yes, the halal industry is just emerging. And as I mentioned, one of my expert areas are the halal economy. And it's just very fascinating how positive and energetic the halal economy is towards technology. And one of those examples to prove that is What's Halal. This is a company that is aiming to connect the entire supply chain, from producers to consultants to auditors, certifiers, etc., who are working in Singapore and Indonesia. One of their successes is that they've raised $4.5 million in seed investment. Education. Well, as you know, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, education, or I would say online education, is accelerating. So why not use the blockchain as well? University of Bahrain has actually used and actually tried blockchain in order to issue digital certificates. It issued over 400 credentials to students who recently graduated from the university's digital academy. Perfect. And the last one is the social impact, where Alipay has launched its Charities on Chain initiative in order to help track donations so that they're more transparent between the stakeholders. Oof, so that was cool. All about blockchain, what it means, what are its unique features, what are its different types, and lastly, what are some of the select case studies. Let's move forward and talk about the role of blockchain technology in the COVID-19 crisis. Let me again take a moment and just, try to imagine that I'm interacting with you. So, as you know, that COVID-19 crisis has brought about a lot of negative impacts, right? Be it health or the economy, it has had a lot of negative repercussions. However, this crisis, like any other, actually, has also accelerated technology altogether. So technology, something that we would be planning to do in the near future, let's say in 10 years, are actually now being done within 10 days or 10 weeks. And it's very interesting to know that blockchain as a technology has great potential to be part of this acceleration and to actually improve things and bring positive impact of the COVID-19 crisis. In front of you are the 5 biggest impact areas for the industry. And this is taken from our Dinar Standards Insights brief, where we have analyzed 15 signals of a post-COVID-19 new normal for the government. So we first spoke about what are the impact areas, and then we spoke about what the new normal would look like for the government. So these are the 5 impact areas. Now let's look at what blockchain can do to overcome this negative impact. Number 1 is the supply chain disruption. The impact has been that there has been a major disruption across global supply chains, primarily because of closure of factories and also because of transportation. No transport, no travel, that's the reason. Secondly, and interestingly, there is an unprecedented demand for certain goods, like medical goods, no doubt, and also healthy food, and also snacks, by the way. So this has actually created a very, I don't know, I should say devastating, but a very critical situation for the supply chain. And how blockchain can help mitigate this impact. It can help by providing trust among the supply chain members. It can help to track in real time, track the data in real time, promises security, and will improve efficiency. Where the economy is going down, it can actually help improve your costs in real time. Second is the SMEs in crisis. So an interesting fact that the SMEs account for 99% of all the businesses, and they generate at least 60% of employment. Employment that is also heavily impacted because of the COVID-19 crisis. The problem is that, and this has been a problem even before the crisis, that there are inefficiency within the traditional banking system. You see, $1.5 trillion global trade finance gap. And what does that mean for the SMEs is that they have high transaction costs, high administration costs, and this COVID-19 is actually hitting them hard. What blockchain can do here, it can provide them with new trading opportunities, ensure transparency, reduce their costs, reduce the risk through better regulatory compliance, and so on and so forth. Right, as I mentioned to you about our report on the 15 signals of post-COVID-19 new normal, which you can find on our website, this is a snapshot of and an overview of the 15 signals or the 15 trends that we see after the COVID-19, which is estimated like a year or two period. Now, of these 15 trends or signals, as we call it, there are some of these signals that have the high potential to use blockchain technology. For instance, mass-scale mental health support. An interesting technology being used is the VR technology, virtual reality, to help with psychological issues, and then that's fascinating to be using VR. And blockchain is actually used to tokenize, to incentivize people using blockchain. Trade policy realignments, again, using blockchain for the supply chain and for better transparency, and so on and so forth. Accelerating economy's digital transformation. Engaging and regulating non-government mass tech platform players like the blockchain or any major players, and enabling them to work together with blockchain startups. That's one of the emerging trends that are foreseen. And lastly, accelerated automation of government services. And blockchain, again, can play a very important role for that, to reduce inefficiencies and also to help governments achieve a sustainable environment. Like you may have heard of the Emirates blockchain strategy in the UAE, where we aim to go at least 50% without paperless in all the government transactions. And blockchain can actually help to achieve that. Okay, great. So we have spoken about the blockchain technology, and then what role does it play in the COVID-19 crisis? Now that we are actually simplifying technology, let's go a little deeper and a little not so simple. So here we are, blockchain and the cybersecurity. And I want you to excuse me for a moment. Thank you. Okay, so the cybersecurity context. Information security for blockchain. Does this triangle look any familiar to you? Yes, definitely it does. This is the cybersecurity triad, and which which has amazing 3 major concepts: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And this morning, I was asking one of our founders of the Women in Cybersecurity group, Dr. Reem, to help me translate them in Arabic. So I'm going to give it a try, just to entertain you for some time as well. So confidentiality would be Sariya, integrity would be al-Nazaha, and availability would be al-Tufa or Tufa. Sorry, I'm not going to give this another try, since I'm not sure how to pronounce them. So anyhow, let's get to it. So we are going to now analyze what role does blockchain play to help achieve these 3 major cybersecurity concepts. And I'll just quickly read through them, so it you will be familiarized with it, and once we dive deep into it, you'll understand better. For confidentiality, we'll look at the network access. And actually, I'm just thinking that the definition that we have discussed earlier will also help you to understand thoroughly, inshallah. I hope so. Okay, so confidentiality includes network access to the entire system. Then we also look at the data access. How do you add data to the blockchain system? Second, for the integrity, we will look at the immutability feature. That is that you cannot edit anything on blockchain. Then the traceability feature, because you cannot edit anything, you can easily trace it. Integrity. Lastly, the availability. There is no single point of failure. Why? Because it's decentralized. And lastly, operational resilience. Okay, I tried to be a little creative, but and I tried to write it in a coding manner, but if this is not exactly what it would be like in actual coding system, then please pardon me for that. Okay, so confidentiality, what's the definition of confidentiality, right? The National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, translates confidentiality as the property that sensitive information is not disclosed to unauthorized individuals, entities, or processes. This is a good definition, and it's reminding me of my law classes where definitions are so to the point, but they're also so sophisticated. But it's cool because it actually addresses pretty much everything that we're going to talk about. Sensitive information, unauthorized individuals, and actually these are the 2 keywords. Okay, so keeping those in mind, let's look at how blockchain can help achieve confidentiality. The network access. So unauthorized individuals. The network access, as we discussed earlier, is only accessible to people using their public key infrastructure to authenticate that they are the actual authority or the authorized individuals for the network. And I'm talking about this in light of especially private and consortium blockchains, or in other words, permission blockchains. Because in public blockchain like Bitcoins, you do not need to authenticate who you are. Okay. Second is the data access. This is the sensitive information part of the definition. So data access and disclosure, there is an end-to-end encryption, which means that only those who have the authority to access the encrypted data can access it. And I'm sure you are cybersecurity future stars, and you may already know about the public key infrastructure because that's a basic to begin with, right, in cybersecurity. And you will also know well that how the encryptions work. So how you use the public key to encrypt the data, and what is the role of your private key to decrypt the data. So that's pretty much what blockchain leverages to achieve confidentiality. Sería. I tried it again. Okay. Next part of the triangle is the integrity part. Again, NIST defines this as guarding against improper information modification, okay, or destruction, and includes ensuring information non-repudiation and authenticity. Cool. So again, the keywords here are modification or destruction. Ensure that information is non-repudiation and authenticity, which will be clubbed again together. So two basic key terms. So what does it mean in the light of blockchain would be, if we look at immutability feature of the blockchain, which is that you cannot change anything within the blockchain. Let me read this for you. So a combination of sequential hashing and cryptography, decentralized structure, and the consensus model protocols present organizations with further level of assurance over the security of data. Basically, as I said before, the data is cryptographically hashed together. Using the cryptography hash, it is chained together, and that's why you cannot modify it. But if you want to make any changes saying that, oh, the previous transaction was wrong, you need to add another block claiming that, and you cannot change the original block already. So that's how the integrity of the system is maintained. Traceability, the non-repudiation concept. So every transaction added to the public or private blockchain is digitally signed and time-stamped. And what non-repudiation means is that it's an assurance that someone cannot duplicate the authenticity of their signature on a file or authorship. In other words, you cannot duplicate yourself as a user. Neither can you duplicate any data on the system. And that's how it goes. And remember the audit trail, how everything is time-stamped and an audit trail is provided to you. And that's how an integrity of the system is maintained. Finally, availability, which was التوفر. I tried it again. Okay, so NIST again defines this as ensuring timely and reliable access to the use of information. Wow, I'm actually imagining how this links to blockchain. Definitely it does, because of its distributed and decentralized feature, you don't have to ask any single server for permission because it's distributed, and you have a copy of the ledger yourself. So this feature of the technology solves the Byzantine general's problem of false consensus. And I'm actually very, very impressed by this term, the term given to this type of a concept, which is Byzantine general's problem of false consensus. And I really want to find out the history behind it. If you know the history behind it and you can describe in like a sentence or two, do let me know. Okay. So yeah, because there's no central control, right? Because it's likely that the central control could be corrupted. And because it runs around a consensus mechanism, there are high probability or there's a high chance of the consensus to run authentically. Okay, next under the availability is operational resilience. So this is a combination of the peer-to-peer nature and sufficient nodes within the network make the platform operationally resilient. Again, very much similar to our previous point, but what it is implying here is that should there be sufficient nodes, there will be high chances of the consensus to be true. And I just remember that I forgot to address this small box here. So I'm coming back to the first point, which is confidentiality, where we were talking about data access, right? What is the risk here? Remember, in the data access, we spoke about the keys that you have, the public key and the private key. Well, if you lose your private key, then there's a threat of your data also being lost. Lost meaning losing from your hands. However, what could work in the future is quantum computing, another great technology, and it's to some extent being used. In fact, to a greater extent, it's being used within the cryptocurrencies, within blockchain and so on and so forth. And I don't want to go in depth of how they work, but if you're familiar with these terms, the mining of cryptocurrencies work very much on quantum computing, because in order to add something to the public blockchain, you need high computer power. Your computer should have a great memory to solve some critical, sophisticated mathematical problems. But this could also most likely be used in private and consortium blockchains. Then when we were talking about the integrity, the immutable nature of the blockchain and how it is traceable, there is a risk of something we call the right to be forgotten. That cannot be complied with. In other words, data privacy issues. And coming back to our third point on availability, where we were talking about the operational resilience, yes, it is resilient because of its distributed nature and the consensus mechanism. However, it's not completely bulletproof, because and the last part is the challenges of blockchain, where we will dive deep into this concept of how still cybersecurity could be an issue for blockchain. Where it is helping to comply with cybersecurity, it does have some issues as well. Yeah, and then external events outside of their control. Like I said, for public blockchain, in order to add something to the blockchain itself, it needs high computer power, quantum computing, right? It needs high energy also, and the computer should have good memory also. But imagine if there is a global internet outage, or there is an internet outage within the country, it can affect the blockchain system. Private blockchain need for sufficient nodes. Yes, imagine you don't have enough nodes, and let's say 3 out of 10. That'll be very less. So let's say 6 out of 10 becomes more than 51%, and these 6 people out of the 10 that are in the blockchain actually get together, and then they're planning to do something wrong, to add some wrong data within the blockchain. So you need enough nodes and enough trusted nodes to work within the blockchain. Okay, because I have confused you, I feel like going back and forth. Let's quickly summarize what we have said. So we spoke about information security for blockchain. What does it mean for the blockchain, and how blockchain can actually address and fit in these 3 pieces of the triangle: confidentiality, maintaining integrity, and the availability. Under confidentiality, because the access to the network and the access to data is limited, that's how confidentiality is maintained. Remember the public key infrastructure, which I was about to forget, but I remembered. That's the confidentiality part of it. The integrity part of it is because of its immutable nature. You cannot change anything that has happened. And because you cannot change anything that has happened before, you can actually trace everything. You get a time-stamped audit trail. integrity is maintained. And lastly comes the availability. So there is no single point of failure because it is decentralized, it's distributed. And because of this nature of blockchain, there is an operational resilience as well. I was just waiting so you can again revisit it. Okay. All right, so here we are to the final part of the presentation, and which is the challenges of blockchain. Now, just like any other technology, blockchain no doubt also brings about some sort of challenges. Because you see, blockchain is not the answer for everything. It's not a panacea, and I've learned this new word. It's not a panacea, which means it's not the answer or the ultimate cure for a disease or a problem. It's just a tool, and no doubt a very fascinating and a futuristic technology. And we've seen how it can actually help and disrupt certain sectors, positively disrupt certain sectors. Okay, so let's look at the challenges. There are quite a few challenges, but I thought to highlight the 4 most important ones: data quality, smart contracts, data governance, and the cybersecurity. So data quality. Blockchain does not guarantee or improve the quality of the data. All it can take the responsibility of is the data that is added to the blockchain system. It's only that data that blockchain can ensure the accuracy and quality of that data, which means anything that's lying outside or the data that's coming from outside still needs to be quality checked. Okay, and that data that lies outside in your technological terms is called the oracle. So what is the solution for this? Consider using multiple oracles to increase the trust in the integrity of the external data that is being added to the blockchain from the oracle. So use several sources of data, and that's how, in business terms, it's called sampling, right? When you have to quality check, let's say you're in a factory of chocolates, and you want to quality check that all the chocolates manufactured are with the good taste, with the good shape, they're packaged properly, and then all these quality checks. So you cannot eat all the chocolates and test that they're good quality or not, and you cannot practically look at every packet of chocolate. What you do is you sample them. You do the sampling, which means you take few of them to ensure that to make a judgment that overall the quality is good. That's what it means here, that you take at least more than one number of oracles, sources of information, and then you test the quality. Sorry, excuse me. Okay, data quality. Next is the smart contracts. And I realized all this time we didn't speak about this. Smart contract is another great feature of blockchain. And what it does is it's actually a self-executing contract, which means that you have programmed it in such a way that it has predetermined options. And once those options criterias, actually is the right word, once those predetermined criterias are met, then there is an action that the smart contract has to do. So this is very, very fascinating. And this is actually used in many of the financial use cases where money has to be transferred. or within the supply chain, right, where you have to pay your, let's say you have to pay your supplier, but before that, the smart contract should make sure that you've received your goods and all the conditions between the two parties are met, and then the smart contract automatically allows the money to be transferred. That's what the smart contracts are. Now, the problem here is, the challenge here is that they are vulnerable to programming errors or legal issues. Now, we understand what programming error is because it could be that the predetermined options that you have are not well programmed. Okay, there's some errors that you've had and there's a chaos because of that. But what does it mean about the legal issues? The legal issue mean because this is automated, right? And they are not human-like. They don't think like human and they only do what is asked of them to do. They do not take into account the implied expectations or the unforeseen circumstances. So for instance, if my supplier has given me my goods, has delivered them, smart contract will, so there are a few criteria. Has the supplier given you your goods? Yes. Has the supplier given you your goods on time? Yes. Are the goods, what else can the smart contract tell you? Okay, then the smart contract will contact your bank to make sure you have enough money to give the supplier. Yes. So these are the things that are automated for the smart contract to do. What this contract cannot do is to check that the goods you've received are of good quality and that they're not damaged. So these are the implied expectations, which are obvious for us, but the computer doesn't know and they cannot verify it unless there are certain mechanisms used, like sensors and so on and so forth. But this was an example of the legal issues that come here. So implied expectations. The solution for both of these to avoid both programming errors, and you cannot actually avoid the implied expectation part because that's a human part of it, but you can actually avoid the programming error. And the solution is that smart contracts, legal advisors who can code in smart contract programming can actually take over this part and ensure that these are computable contracts and they accurately reflect the business deal. So you see there's a good opportunity for both the legal advisors and the cybersecurity, and this is a great field actually. Okay, keeping the time in mind, let's quickly look at the last two challenges of blockchain: the data governance and the cybersecurity. So data governance, like remember previously when we were discussing the security triad, and under the confidentiality, no, actually it was under the integrity, where we spoke about immutability, right? Where you cannot change anything on blockchain. Once it's there, it's there. This brings a threat to the data privacy part of it, or the right to be forgotten. This is a term used under the GDPR, which is the European policy of data privacy. And so how does blockchain solve the solution? Because everything is permanently recorded. Solution is zero knowledge protocol, which remember EY is actually using for their financial transactions to keep things private, but at the same time to keep them, excuse me, but at the same time to keep them efficient. So these, the zero knowledge protocol can be used where one party called the prover can actually prove to the another party called the verifier that something is true without actually revealing any further details with the verifier of the information. Do check out the zero knowledge protocol concept. It's a great concept. Lastly is the cybersecurity. So yes, blockchain is actually going to help with cybersecurity and actually help with that entire security triad. However, there are potential cybersecurity risks associated with blockchain as well. Number one being the software vulnerability, just like smart contracts. Key management. So sorry about that. So the key management, yes, managing your private key. If an hacker hacks it, then sorry. The integration risk, Oracle authenticity management. Yes, this is the data quality part of it again. To make sure that the external data coming in is actually secure and without any disruptions or yeah. Cyber attacks. So there are some very likely cyber attacks. For example, this one is called the Cyber Attack, if I've pronounced this right. And what it really means is that, and then this was the issue, if you remember before, the need to have sufficient nodes within your private blockchain. Remember under the third availability side, where we were speaking about the operational resilience and the importance of having enough nodes. Otherwise, your system is prone to what is called the cyber attack, which is that one node could take over several nodes and actually behave like them and make decisions. In this case, a hacker could do that. There's another attack which I haven't mentioned here. It's also called the Eclipse Attack, which is that a hacker could potentially hide a node, hide a participant, and so that participant can't see anyone on blockchain, and no one on blockchain can see that participant. So hackers just sometimes want to have fun. So this could be the dirty tricks they could play. So what are the solutions? Number one, robust white box security testing. A term coming from me. Yes, so this is a cool concept, which is to thoroughly examine and test your programming, your code before it is out. Then the use of secure wallets, cold wallet and the hot wallet. Cold wallet is a cold concept, just write your private key somewhere and save it under in the locker or under your pillow. So that's basically a cold wallet. And a hot wallet would be to store your private keys in an electronic device. But again, there are issues of if the internet is connected to the device, then your key is prone to be hacked as well. Then we have the Federation of Off-Chain External Systems, Oracle. So, look for trusted sources, strict and well-regulated mechanism of your accepting your trusted nodes on the blockchain. And now you must be wondering that we are saying blockchain is decentralized. Still, there are some concepts within the private and consortium blockchain where there is some degree of centralization still. Well, yes, there is, because that's a need, especially keeping the privacy in concern. There has to be some level of centralization and examining, because we can't completely go permissionless. However, it's still better than a very centralized system, because just a quick revision, it helps you to gain trust among your stakeholders. It helps you to keep an audit trail, and which is time stamped, so you save time in actually going through the transactions, and it's good for auditors as well, for financial auditors. It's easier for them, or legal auditors. So transparency it is, and then the trust factor it is. So it's still better than having a completely centralized system. And this was demystifying the blockchain technology. تبسيط تقنية البلوكتشين. if you liked it, then otherwise you're not compelled to. Okay, so we're at the end of it and on time. Alhamdulillah, thanks for your cooperation. So quickly, we spoke about, let's summarize, we spoke about the blockchain technology. Then we spoke about the role of blockchain technology in actually improvising the COVID-19 situation. We looked at blockchain and the cybersecurity triad, which was confidentiality, integrity, and availability. I'm tempted to say it in Arabic, but I don't want to do it that. I don't want to make fun of me. And lastly, the challenges of blockchain, and of course, how we can overcome them, which were primarily for my revision as well. Data quality, the external oracles, smart contracts, data governance, and cybersecurity issues. Great, and I hope you enjoyed this session. I know it's quite boring to hear someone for an hour, but I really tried to make this very light and fun. So yeah, shukran lakum ala al-hudur, if I said that right. And yeah, if I said something wrong, I'm sorry. So you could actually contact me and say, hey, man, this is not what you should, this is not the right concept. Or otherwise, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me on LinkedIn. See, we're trying to go as digital as possible. So you just have to scan here and it will take you to my page. Other than that, you could also visit this website, which is ResearchGate, to actually have a look at some of my previous published papers, which was on the use case of halal food supply chain and how blockchain could actually help simplify and disrupt the halal food blockchain, halal food supply chain. And another paper that I had written was on UAE, a cybersecure nation, where I'm discussing what it takes for a nation like UAE to become a cybersecure and smart nation. I'm sure you'll find that paper interesting, and you can find it on my website, on this website. Lastly, don't forget to follow the Women in Cybersecurity Middle East group. These are great, enthusiastic, experienced ladies who are actually working hard to spread the cybersecurity information. Wonderful job they're doing. These are the social medias we are on, and we also have a website. And to conclude with, there is something exciting that's coming up. So we are coming up with our first virtual conference happening on 14th November and 15th November. So do mark your calendars, and we're also accepting papers. So entry to this conference will be free. So do mark your calendars and stay updated on our social media. Okay, so I am done. Now let's see if there are any questions for me. I'm prompted to say that I have to stop, so I'm stopping now. All right, how do I see the Q&As? Sorry, you'll have to wait a second. Okay. Right, sorry. I didn't realize there were good comments here. Let me see. And sorry that I can't read comments in Arabic, so I won't be able to answer them. I mean, I can read them, but I can't understand them. Okay. Okay, I can read Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Right, surprisingly, there are not much questions, at least not in English. But if you do have, please put them in. Financial products examples. I got a question. Okay, so quick one. Financial products examples. Well, cryptocurrency is one of them, right? Bitcoins is one of the financial product example. Another one is the ABR initiative between UAE and Saudi, which is to produce cryptocurrencies, a cryptocurrency, right? So that's another example. And yes, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect or ask questions, no problem, or anyone within the Women in Cybersecurity Middle East group, and we'll be more than happy to address your questions. A final question I will take before, because we have to quickly wrap this up, is regarding the digital tokens. So the previous question on some of the financial products is also the digital token. And what these are basically, there are two types of digital token. One is intrinsic digital, and one is asset or investment tokens. Intrinsic digital is like Bitcoins and cryptocurrencies, okay? And what is asset or investment token is that, and by the way, token is just like a coupon, right? You might get a coupon for a free ice cream or a free drink. That's a similar way how digital tokens work. It's like a digital token, basically. Intrinsic ones are those like Bitcoins. They have a value in themselves. And there are tokens that are asset-backed, which means that you can actually claim an asset that's behind the digital token, and you usually get revenue out of that asset. For example, a digital token that represents a building, and you get your rents from that building. That's an asset-based token. It's a good concept, digital token, which is used within blockchain as well. Okay, I have to wrap this up because in a minute we have to close it. So thanks a lot once again for those who've been with us. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget to follow us on our social media. And see ya. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.